I guess we're live now. Okay, it's really crowded on here. So what can go first?
I guess we're live now.
That has to go
it's really
second.
crowded on here.
All right, there we go. All right, so that we can get rid of this window now. So we've done all we need to do with it. And I guess we can get rid of this one too, because we don't need that one either. The me window should still be somewhere. There I am. Look, I'm here. Probably. Hopefully. I should check to see if I'm here. That would be this. Yes, well, I'm blocked now because this window is blocking it, but it's not really showing, is it? Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay. This is the one I need, right? This one here. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So that's sort of working. Everything looks reasonably sized and whatnot, so I think we'll go with that. I think so. Okay. Good enough. So this can go in front of this for now. Then we have a drawing window if we need it. Yeah, okay. Oh, we got all kinds of stuff. So, very good. Way ahead, probably, partially. The only thing I can't stand is this stupid Google thing. Let's see. Hide. Oh, there we go. Hide that. Yes, thank you. It's really a dumb place to put it, by the way. Just saying. What the hell is this? YouTube something or other. I'm not doing. Oh, that's the chat. Okay, so that we don't need anywhere near us for a while, probably. All right, anyway, so I figure I'll read some of this stuff and delete it and do the usual routine. You can watch my hair dry. I guess smart people need idiots, like saints need sinners. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'll leave it. Okay, I don't like it much, but I'll leave it. All right, Elvis Tesla. Oh, that's a stupid name, but whatever. You are an idiot, and you want to be right, but you are not, says you. You cannot disprove Ken or Eric. Yeah, I can, in the sense that, logical proofs can be made. And they're based on the fact that they have absolutely no evidence for what they claim to be the truth. Like, zero evidence. Zero. You cannot prove Einstein. Why would I want to prove Einstein? And nobody has yet to. So again, this guy has listened to so few videos, he thinks I support Einstein's theories. You're an idiot. So you're the idiot. You don't even watch the video and you comment on it. That makes you the fucking idiot. Ken is onto a new paradigm. No, he's not. He's onto an old paradigm. He keeps talking about Prakrit and the brilliance of the ancients and how we should be listening to people who didn't know how to make a fucking flushing toilet. They have the truth. That will transform our understanding. Transform it into what? Rubbish. Baby talk. Mush. About hyperborealoids of goodness. Absolute crap. Anyone with a deeply critical thinking mind, which you obviously don't have, because one of the first things that occurs to a critical mind is that they ought to be careful about being critical. They ought to have evidence. To discern should be able to figure out the relationship of the magnetic geometry. So again, whatever that is, the magnetic geometry that's a hyperboloid and a torus, and they're all moving, and it's all interfering with itself, and blah, 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 blah. Sure, whatever. That's geometry. Only to a fucktard are the structure and dynamics of the primary electrifying forces that create it. So again, more just absolute nothing conversation. So the amazing electro thingy. It's all woo-woo. It's all vaporous, godlike mush. Nothing physical, nothing discernible, nothing discrete, nothing at all. He can't draw a rational picture of a single bit of this mush. Ken has proven. No, he hasn't proven anything. He hasn't even glimmered at a piece of evidence in many ways that he has put forth. And the intuitive, well, intuitive is really stupid. So if you're going with intuitive or, just my quick glance, I say that looks like Bigfoot. Oh, wait a minute, that's Bigfoot over. Oh, no, there's Bigfoot over there. Yeah, that's what intuition gets you. Mind should understand the forthcoming ramifications of his discoveries. There won't be any ramifications. There won't be any change in anything. Ken's theory is completely uninteresting in terms of it changes nothing, first of all, and it's just gobbledygook. It's just jargon. He will create he will not feed the hungry with his bullshit. But those who refuse to look at the possibility that he is correct, what do you mean? I was
Could be a new post.
willing to look, and I'm the one that's willing to look at his absolute mush. He's the one not willing to look at anybody else's mush, idiot. So again, you get it completely backwards. He is the one who thinks he is right and everybody else is wrong, and he doesn't want to be challenged. I do, on the other hand. I wish you to attempt to prove me wrong. I wish you to ask me relevant and salient questions regarding what I propose. Okay, Ken will not accept any. You cannot ask Ken, hey, Ken, if all this stuff is moving, how come we don't detect any of the movement? How come the ferrofluid doesn't move at all? How come each little ferro bit stays exactly where it is? How come, Ken? Possibility he is correct and will never understand beyond what their own confirmation bias allows them. Again, it's no confirmation bias. I'm just asking for a piece of evidence. You think hyperboloid is enough. You think saying the word electrical blah blah is enough. You think counter space, upspace, ether. You think all of this shit is a description of something. I call it absolute God of the gaps gobbledygook. There's absolutely nothing to it. There's no explanation of how the fuck it works. A coaxial cable that's linear hoptopodude and did this adopodude and did all this jargon and all this bullshit. There's no coaxial cables running through fucking ether or space, retard. You're the deluded fuckwit who can't listen to anybody. They are like the scoffers and deniers of the discoveries of the past. Again, still, so you're the one living in the past. You're the one wishing that Thor is real. And that's all that fucking Fatty is selling to you. He's just selling you Thor repackaged, another repackaged religious theory, who still look to in dismay, wishing to be correct while the new understanding leave them behind. Again, this is the one that is saying that the Platonians had it correct, that we should go back 4,000 fucking years, and those guys knew what magnetism was. That's how fucking backward you are. You don't even know what he's selling. You're so fucking clueless. For the inability to get out of their box of crayon diagrams. And again, you're the one who can't even, crayon paradigm. You can't even draw it. You can't even explain this theory. You can't explain where the energy comes from. You can't explain a single thing about it. Absolutely nothing. You can't connect it to all the evidence of all the experiments that have been conducted. You're just talking out of your flapping ass. So what is gravity? Like, you have a clue? No chance. Why hasn't science mastered that, smart guy? Well, I have mastered it, asswipe. I have a perfectly complete theory. See, again, you haven't watched any videos whatsoever. So you're worse. You are so guilty. You know, you claim other people aren't willing to listen to Ken, and you are unwilling to even take the tiny bit of time it takes to understand that I already have a theory of gravity, jackass. Until you can explain that, you don't have shit. But regurgitating the same dead theory. So again, he thinks I'm regurgitating a dead theory. So again, just pay no attention. Don't give a shit about the truth. Just lie about people, lie about what they're doing on their channel, because you can't pay attention for more than 5 fucking minutes. And clearly in the Ken video you're responding to, I actually drew a picture of my contra theory, asswipe. But still leave us looking for particles at CERN. Yeah, I don't have any respect for CERN. I have no obligation to defend CERN, and only finding endless, I don't know, granularity of waveforms. Well, again, I'm all against the whole wavy nonsense. They will never find the God particle. Well, they already found it from their own, to their own satisfaction. Clearly it's not a God particle. Do you know why? It does not exist. Well, see, again, you claim. But why are you deliberately trying to be an Einstein wannabe So again, yeah, look, the idea was Einstein failed to find a unification theory. I succeeded. So I'm not really Einstein wannabe. I just sit there and took the idea. Oh, unification? Hey, maybe I can do that. And I did. Fuck you, asshole. With that hair, did you get lost in the 80s? Yeah, well, I was born in the 60s, well, the 50s, actually. And frankly, I like my hair. You don't like it? Tough shit. Can I look at your hair? Will you please put a picture of yourself in your icon so I can mock your silly fat ears and shit and your doofy look? God, what an asshole you are. Your science is stuck there, dude. See, again, he hasn't paid any attention to a single video, yet he's commentating. What a douche. So here is one for you, pal. Okay, I should just call you something really derogatory, boy. Boy. Go explain what is going on with Jared Morin. Why would I bother looking up anybody you are connected with? Obviously, you're a fake and a phony. You don't pay any attention. Why should I give a fuck? It will be entertaining to hear what you can make regarding the explanation of that. No, fuck you. I'm not here to entertain you, and clearly I'm not entertaining you because you can't pay enough attention to even know what's going on this channel with 800 videos. You fucking piece of shit. Here you are insulting Tesla's name. Oh, I'm defending something by being a very poor carrier of the sign. You think Tesla wants you carrying his name? Think about that for a little while. He's a dead man. You're picking on his reputation. You're carrying it around like you're somebody Tesla would appreciate to be carrying his little placard. You think you're worthy, fucking cunt? I don't think you are. Tesla was a douche, but he wasn't as big a douche as you. Fucking asshole. All right, you're a breath of fresh air. Who cares? Hi, Gary. I'm not sure if I'm explaining my point clearly enough, so I'll give it another attempt. I don't know why he's going on and on about this stuff, but anyway, I'll start somewhere in here. So with that in mind, yes, just imagine there was something. What I'm trying to get across is that the electron within this structure are separated by a distance. There is a physical space between them. So if emissions are being released via an electron that are physically separated in space, well, again, the electrons aren't emitting anything. The force between them is being released. That's the photon. When any form of emission, so emissions that pass by the electrons would be photons, and they have to hit the fucking photon to interact, take place, it travels over a distance, and with divergence, okay, when it travels over a distance and with divergence, says you, the on-off pattern becomes visible because the emission itself, see, it doesn't diverge until it goes through the two slits. If I just shoot a laser beam straight, none of it diverges. It doesn't diverge any extra amount. It clearly diverges a lot more when I put the two slits there, indicating that the electrons or something causing the divergence from its point of origin is always in the form of the on-off pattern because there's physical space between the electrons. So let us use the drawing window just for the fun of it and see how it works. Unfortunately, I can fiddle with the contrast on the other video, but I can't fiddle with it on this video. And one camera, I can only do one camera on this. It's just little subtle stupid things. You just say, why did they make it that way? I mean, it's just kind of stupid. I mean, I guess technically I could unplug the camera and then the other camera will be the first camera. See the window I'm in now, this one, only finds the first camera on the list and it won't look for any other cameras. So I can't put a different camera in this window, which is kind of a pain in the ass because I can fix the contrast on this window. So my drawing camera is in the wrong window. So if I technically disconnect the camera and then connect it, maybe that'll work. I'll have to try that. Anyway, it's not your problem, but it's just a little bit irritating. Everything has little subtle things that just make it a little irritating. You also can't resize this window, which is sort of a pain in the ass. So let's see if there's any comments that I need to deal with. I don't think there'll be any. This should be the comment window. It's not popping up because the other window's blocking it, no doubt. See, it really is a wipe out everything window. Hello. Yeah, well, hello doesn't do it for me. All right, so this is quick. Just do this quick for fucking around. Just get this done. All right, so basically what Michael, something like that, is arguing is that the electrons are in spaces, places. And when the light goes through, it hits an electron, so that would be a dark spot. And then when it misses an electron, that would be a light spot. And he's kind of implying that somehow the light's automatically diverging, but it's not really. So it doesn't really get to the point. So the point really is that what happens is the photon hits, if the photon misses, it goes to the center in the single slit, and that's why it's so bright. It's because most of the light doesn't hit an electron. But if the photon hits an electron, then the electron is in tension in an atom, connected to the atom, connected to the proton in the atom. It's not a part of the atomic structure. It's a free electron. But anyway, it's free, but it's bound. Anyway, the electron moves when it's hit. And the point is that it moves back again because this was the place where it was comfortable. This is where the tension was even between it and the other electrons. So in essence, the photon pushes it towards an electron. It doesn't like being pushed towards an electron, so it moves back into its position again. The point is it moves back in a different, it kind of makes a swirly thingy. So it moves back in a different direction or way than it got there, and that ends up releasing some force between this other electron. So it absorbs the force going one way. So this is like the yin. It's absorbing force on this electron. This electron pushes back. And when it pushes back, the electron, let's just say overshoots. So it goes back a little too far. As it's coming back in again, this shoots out the new photon in this direction. And then it settles into its spot. So it's just the mechanism of how the electron moves can be all kinds. But I'm just saying, basically, the electron gets moved by the momentum of the photon. It moves back, overshoots a little bit. And when it overshoots, it releases force this way between the electrons. Something like that. So it just releases a new photon at the new direction. Yes, at the same frequency, which is sort of critical. So the pressure has to be equalized to the frequency, in the sense that whatever this mechanism is, obviously it has to, the back pressure has to be the same as the forward pressure of the momentum the photon came with. And the momentum would be in two parts. It would be in the speed of light of the photon, but also in the frequency of the light of the photon. Something like that. But anyway, this somewhere, it's the electron. Let's do the electron experiment. So when they shoot electrons through, you can sort of get this one kind of easy. That the electron comes in and it goes into another electron, and they're both emitting repulsive force. So when the repulsive force of this electron reaches the surface of this electron, it reflects off of it. And so the two electrons start reflecting back and forth force. And so they basically go around each other. You can sort of understand that they'll evade each other. They won't hit each other. They'll evade each other. And that's the angle produced in the electron experiment. And the more electrons a photon hits going through, the more electrons the electron hits going through, the more angular change you can get. So it'll be 3 degrees the first time, and then after you hit a second one, you go 6 degrees, and hit a third one, you go 9 degrees, that kind of thing. So the electron makes it easier to see how that process works, but the photon's doing something very similar, except when it hits the electron, it creates a vibration in the electron that changes the photon's direction. All right, no, I think that worked fairly well. So yeah, I had to use an old monitor I had that was a little buggy, but it seems to be working, just to get the wide screen thing, because in Linux I can't find any way to change the screen size that is if it's incompliant with your monitor, it doesn't let you change it. So I couldn't stretch the image to fit the screen, so I had to change the monitor. So it's a little harder to read actually, which I don't like, but life is tough. To make the text a little bigger maybe. All right, so a couple of comments and then we'll go back to the comment page. I think that's what we'll do. Can you prove any of this? It's amazing. A proof is in the form of evidence and logic. So what you really want to do to prove something is demonstrate that your theory is consistent with the experiments and the mathematics and the general what's understood to be the effects. Can't really know the cause is perfect. That's sort of what we're trying to model, but you can point out how your definition of cause fits with the effects. And that's all you can do. Okay, I can only logically prove it in the sense that I can point out how it explains gravity perfectly, how it explains magnetism perfectly. I mean, I can explain to you why it creates charge. It explains why things are charged, how they're charged, and it explains why magnets attract and why magnets repel. These are fundamental things that it explains very well. That's the only form of proof there is. I'm sorry. I can point out all the flaws in their theory just to demonstrate how their math doesn't actually work. They create fake mathematics, essentially. That's what relativity did when it decided photons aren't affected by the inverse square law, by just magic. And this idiotic notion the photon is in the gravity twice as long because it thinks it is. It doesn't actually travel through it twice as long, but somehow it's affected by twice as much gravity because it thinks it was. I can point out how that sounds quite illogical. All you're doing is drawing pictures of supposed interactions and their resultant behavior. Exactly what somebody who's going to explain the engineering of a bridge, for example, would do. They would explain to you why over a distance, the stress points in the beams, certain things happen because of leverage. And because of leverage, a 10-pound weight at 40 yards ends up being equal to a 4,000-pound weight at 10 yards. All they can do is explain to you the physics of the facts. So fuck you. I mean, you know, nut bang. I don't think we need you here. I don't think we do. So I'll get rid of you. Asswipe. Bang. For the light to show divergence, you'd require a source of light that is very small. Well, this is just idiotic. Clearly, the slit is what's confining the light. You can have as much light as you want to shoot at it. That the slit size decides how much light gets through. I mean, you're really just going to be, I mean, you know, people are just getting too fucking stupid. Or a screen behind it would be very big. What that even means. Considering the object is smaller than an atom here, half sentences really don't help. Won't be able to stay long. Well, good. Already get the fuck out because you're really quite useless. Could we test that in an environment without electrons like void? What does that even mean? Compared to different atmospheres with different matter density and thus electron concentration. Well, you say they have different electron concentration. Charge is just the pressure between electrons. It doesn't really have to be, I mean, voltage. So you've got to be careful. Voltage is about pressure, isn't about absolute number. So the angle change. And clearly, ultraviolet light will increase the likelihood of voltage jumping across conductors because it creates extra ions, though. So it's sort of a cheat. But clearly, the experiment hasn't been done in depth. And the point, I just don't see the need to do all this stuff. I mean, once I've already pointed out how the pattern doesn't look the way the mathematics say it should, So clearly it's not doing this gradual thing. It's not doing this wave interference thing. It's being caused by something else. And I think the interferometer is another giveaway. The fact that that's such a completely indefensible theory, that you can create diffraction gradient that don't diffract light, when of course they do. But doesn't void have pressure compared to, he deletes his own fucking question thing. You know, that retraction shit's pretty, you know, considering you're just typing half sentences and then you're retracting ones right when I'm reading them. It's pretty fucking annoying. You know, but whatever. I think I'll go back to the silly people on the YouTubes. Pop open, please. All right. See this guy, Scar Runner. He seemed like a reasonable enough asshole, but clearly a douche. Flaming douche. I checked out the Theora Apopoulos, and I think I'm getting the gist of it. Oh, fuck you, R. Is this such a pile of crap? His new interference excuse for, you know, why iron filings line up because of interference. Yeah, fuck you. You're too stupid if you think that has anything to do with reality. For example, when he says the plane of inertia, yeah, which is just a silly combination of words. Inertia is one thing. There's no plane of. I think he means the plane. Oh, here we go. That goes with the moment of inertia. Well, again, just more nonsense talk in a sense, because there is no such moment. I forget what it's called. Yeah, well, there's magnetic moments and such, but that only has to do with when things are in certain positions, but obviously has nothing to do with fucking magnets because they're on all the time. Damn it, but it's how galaxies rotate. Says you. They don't have any clue how galaxies rotate, frankly. It's trying to look the way the big... He's trying to look at the very big and the very small. Again, really stupid thing to do, frankly. They have rough comparisons in the sense that obviously it's only in mediums that things get really complicated, and we're in these mediums. You know, we're not functioning in empty space. The little stuff is in empty space. The big stuff is in empty space. We're not in empty space. All right. Look for similarities. Again, and there's really no point in doing that to some extent. I mean, like I said, it is interesting just to understand how systems work from beginnings to ends, and how the ending and the beginning of things can always be very different than the middle. You know, namely geometric principles. There's no such thing as geometric principle. So you're just talking bullshit too. Fascinating stuff, actually. No, actually, it's absolute horseshit. Ken's videos are just one piece of horseshit after another piece of horseshit after another piece of fucking horseshit. And you're an idiot. Okay. Who suffers these lectures? So I think I was talking about the lectures at the Tinfoil Hat Convention. Hour-long lectures. You do, he says in capital letters. No, I watch videos. And then you go and spend 49 minutes obsessing over his 10-minute lecture. No, he's had a 10-minute video talking absolute nonsense. I point out exactly where all the nonsense is and why people shouldn't be defending people who are selling vacuous religious nonsense. This says a lot about you, and not in a good way. Well, fuck you. Yeah, there's nothing else to say. That it's not a counter argument to a single thing I said. Not a single counter argument. I've asked simple questions. Why don't you answer? I could ask Ken simple questions. Why won't he answer them? Because he's a fucking coward, and so are you. Coward. All right, James McGinn asserts. Yes, I already know what James McGinn asserts. It's not a news flash to me. Yes, I think he's a bit of a truther, loopter, dumbass. But that doesn't mean everything he talks about is a stupid subject. It's a perfectly interesting subject. How exactly the water molecule does what it does. So it's that belief in anthropogenic global warming is the clearest indicator that you don't understand science. So again, he has a stupid, idiotic notion. I don't know why you're using a word like this. He just thinks global warming caused by people didn't happen, because he thinks he doesn't really understand what carbon sinks are, and he doesn't really understand that we've clearly unsunk a ton of carbon. Gee, so yeah, he's a colossal asshole. But I already know all that fucking shit, Monday Moody, so you're not informing me of anything, so pretty much fuck you. All right, pretty cool. Well, at least I can live with that. Yes, I'll accept that as a comment. Yes, it's acceptable. All right, so back to the morons. Let's see, I'm retracting typos. Well, I really don't give a shit about typos, frankly. So if you're worried about that shit, that's, sort of a small thing to worry about. Only an asshole worries about people's grammar and typos, as long as the sentence is readable. I mean, I complain sometimes because people's sentences are just not readable. When you have less pressure compared to air we breathe. What, again, how does this make sense? Why you retract comments and you don't retract ones that can't possibly make any sense? All right, let's see. Could we test different atmospheres with different matter density and thus electron connections? So he thinks, wouldn't we have less pressure compared to the air we breathe? And again, what does that have to do with electrons being attracted to protons? They're not going to care how much air there is. So I'm just saying you can't really pump electrons out of a vacuum. So you could pump all day long and you can't really pull the electrons out unless you pull the protons out, because the electrons are attracted to the protons. So until you break the attraction, or you put a proton in and pull it out, put protons in and keep pulling electrons out, pulling the electrons off, you have to go to some effort to get rid of electrons. I clearly think there would be a difference. I'm just saying I don't have the time or the equipment to do highly precise two-slit experiments to demonstrate the differences. But I'm sure there are differences between using metal slits or plastic slits and all kinds. I'm sure there's differences. Moment of inertia is a real term. Well, for you it is. I'm just saying, what does it mean? What do you think that means? I'm arguing that there's no such thing as any moment of inertia. Velocity, or your acceleration, is something that's completely always in flux. Everything in the universe is always moving, and it's always changing its direction. So there's no such thing as a moment of inertia. We will be in big trouble when all the carbon we unsink, well, this is really not the subject, will make the ocean so acid that all the whatever cytoplasm will produce 50% of the oxygen we breathe will die out. Yes, there's lots of things it's going to kill, in lots of ways it's going to kill it. But again, Jurassic Park was full of living things, so clearly the balance can be regained. As much as you kill one thing, you will create more things that will produce oxygen. Moment of inertia. Well, I'm not interested in you giving me wiki links, that don't work. I mean, that's really not very helpful. So why don't you post a link that actually works? But what do you think is going to be? What do you think the impressive moment of inertia is going to be? What do you think? And do you think it relates somehow to what Ken Wheeler thinks it is? Do you really think so, retard? Do you really think so? 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 Play along for the hell of it. So that should be the Wikipedia page, which it is. Okay. So you couldn't just grab this definition, huh, douchebag? Fuckhead. A quality expressing a body's tendency to resist angular acceleration. So, what does that even mean? It doesn't technically actually resist anything. It's just that when something's more massive than the thing trying to move it, it takes time. So if you're rolling a big, heavy, a bowling ball, let's say that's 10 feet high, and you're trying to roll it, you can't roll it very easy. It's not because it's resisting. It's because you have to apply all your force And it has to be enough force to move every single atom in the giant thing you're trying to move. So there's no moment of inertia. It is the sum of the products of the mass. So here we go. So exactly what I'm pointing out. So it's the mass doesn't move until you spread the energy over the mass. So you can only move by percentages, mass for mass. You have to create enough mass movement to create enough mass movement. In a sense, it's always going to be kinetic. You have to create enough kinetic energy to create kinetic movement. In each particle in the body with the square of the distance from the axis of rotation. So that's just a rotation thing, which is even more silly. So how exactly does a rolling ball have something to do with fucking magnets? Oh, that's right. It doesn't have a motherfucking thing to do with that. So fuck you for asking. Pretty much. What happened to the dopey comment? Seems to be missing. Wasn't it right here? Yes, it's right here. It's gone. Interesting. Anyway, on the other issue that you don't want light to be reflected off two surfaces because no matter how thin the glass is, oh, that's right, it was in the other comments, you would have two reflected beams, and that may or not be the right phase. Again, it doesn't matter. They have to have their beam splitter has a glass layer with two layers of glass. So again, you're not changing that any. So how does that relevant exactly? Obviously, I mean, you can't have silver a non-piece of glass. It is never be perfect, and it will never be perfectly 50%. Well, so what's the point? What's all this arguing about? The other important point is that people don't have lasers in the early 1900s. So again, he's obsessing about the laser as if this is relevant somehow. It's only about creating two beams of light, you retard. It doesn't matter how intense they are. You're just creating two beams, and then you're going to try to combine them. So what the fuck are you talking about? Let's see. You said your laser is very bright. Oh, he just keeps going. Fuck it. It's just he's one-track mind. The point about the cone is valid, so I accommodated for the light reflecting off the sides. I wonder how you did that. You can see the flashlight here. Well, we've already seen the silly flashlight. I mean, yeah, that's pretty silly, actually. Quite silly. All the lights bouncing around here. It's coming out this way. It's coming out this way. It's coming out that way. It's coming out all kinds of different ways. Pointless. Here is the images of the light at various angles. Well, what good is various angles? We need exactly 50-50. So I don't know. This is various. So thanks. I'm really impressed. Blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Again, you're going to just keep ignoring the point. There's no theory that it matters. If you can create the pattern, you can create the pattern. The only thing too much light going one way and too much light going the other way could possibly do is create noise. That is, it can make the dark parts look lighter than they really are. So it can't in any way really destroy the experiment. So you don't even have an argument here, and you're not getting to the fundamental point, which is their beam splitters obviously have a diffraction grating in them. And that's not a good thing. The point about the cone, okay, I already did that. Good. All right, so we're done with that shit. All right, so that's it for the usual dumbasses, or the regular dumbasses. I guess so. Now we'll go back and find the special commenting dumbasses. All right. And the current popular model would predict similar results with slits made of different materials, ? Well, I don't know how it would. Their model just has to do with somehow a photon breaks and turns into two waves. What could they have? How could it care about materials that broke the photon? The only thing that matters is the distance. When it doesn't even matter in the two slit experiment, as I've pointed out, the width of the slits is not in their math. That's how irrelevant they've made it. That they don't even consider the width of the slits as important. Yeah, that somehow they can pretend it's vanishingly small, whatever that means. And if it's vanishingly small, therefore it's not relevant, when even if it were capable of being made vanishingly small, that is, you can make the slits almost infinitely small, it would still, by the inverse square kind of rules, by rules, it would still matter. The smaller and smaller you make it, the more and more it's going to diffract the light. So that can't possibly, it can't be some generic, vanishingly small number. There's no generic. This covers everything from here to here, and to here to here, and here to here, and here. You know, no, there's no generic, vanishingly small number that wouldn't affect the results of the experiment. You seem to imply the results would be different. I don't know. I'm saying that if I took a metal and I charged it differently, that I think the results would be different. The trick is it's such a narrow gap that almost any voltage could jump it. So that's part of it. So again, if you could do it in a vacuum, you know, maybe you can reduce that. So yes, I'm just saying that if you affect the electrons, I think you will affect the results. Is that an amazing statement, do you think? I don't think so. I think when you look at the experiment on, I mean, you can go on Google and you could say 2-slit experiment. We could look at some of those, but I don't think I want to do this searching for stuff. It's a bad habit. You know, I'm sure you'll have patterns that all look very different from each other subtly, you know, that none of them come out exactly the same. All right, draws scribble, yells fuck at folks. Oh, so doof science. Okay, and I won't even read the rest of your comment. There, how's that? Fuck you. Useless. Again, I couldn't make it simpler for people, right? I mean, there's simple question videos. Just answer the question videos and you can own me. You can beat the shit out of me. You win, I lose. Just answer the questions. Just answer the simple questions. Why is a gravitational lens, which is shaped the wrong way, how does it collect light to a focus? How does a concave lens focus light, collect light from a big area and focus it to a small area? How does a lens shaped that way do that? Is that too challenging? Trying to affect the electrons in the slit is an interesting idea. Yes, for somebody who has a lab, you know, perhaps different voltages would give different results. Perhaps you think they would have tested these things, since it's the foundational experiment for all of quantum mechanics. You think we'd already have an answer to these questions, wouldn't you? But no, it's physics. They don't bother with experiments. They do them once in 1819, and then don't do it in 1918 and never do them again. Like the famous Eddington experiment. No, we don't have to successfully repeat the experiment. Who needs successful repeats? No, that's a bullshit idea. Some idiot must have thought that was part of science, because that's not scientific. Scientific is do it once, write your New York Times headlines, and never worry about any of it ever again. Would a transparent but conductive material do the trick? Well, obviously, any material you put in is full of atoms, and obviously the atoms are going to affect the transmission of the light, so I don't think that's going to work. I mean, clearly you can do that regarding polarization of light. You can polarize light by traveling, you know, making it go through oil and then putting magnetism on it. So it's the one way you can screw up light. But obviously you're screwing up the atoms, and the atoms are screwing up the light. Well, you know, you can say there have been repeats, but there haven't. There hasn't been a successful repeat of the experiment. I've diagnosed every one of them that's out there. So make your claim, post a link to it, show me the evidence you have, and I'll show you where it's not outside the margin of their own error. Okay, so the results are absolutely useless. Or as the most recent guy, it's a complete fraud in the sense that he did it all with computer software. There's no the images are absolute shit. It's not the Eddington experiment. It's some pretend experiment done with a computer synthesizer that has nothing to do with actually getting images of suns. The theory is dead in the water just from the mathematics alone. And if you can't understand that, you're pretty stupid. Again, gravity lenses are the inverse of what they have to be to enlarge something. So it can't do that part. And second, the lens was going to create a distortion in the image because it won't focus the light from a sun. The light from the sun won't be going to our eye. It will be going like this. Well, actually, it'll be going like this. One piece of the light could be hitting us, and the rest would be going one way, somewhere else. And then the mathematics is rubbish. Einstein's two gimmicks. Why don't you explain to me why photons aren't affected by the inverse square law? So the sun produces gravity at the inverse square law. The only exception is photons. Electrons, inverse square law. Proton, inverse square law. Atom, inverse square law. Human being, inverse square law. Planet Earth, inverse square law. Why do photons get to break that law? And then why don't you explain to me that we know that the photon isn't in the gravity twice as long. It's all an illusion. It's a special little path it takes, right? So we know how long it's in the gravity. But by Einstein's theory, because the photon thinks it was in the gravity twice as long, from its perspective, it got hit by twice as much gravity, so to speak, if gravity was a hitting force, and therefore got bent as much as it would have if it was in the gravity twice as long as it really was. Now, why don't you tell me how that's logical? Why don't you give me the explanation for why a rational person would say, yeah, that's sure that could happen. You think you got hit by 10 bullets and there's only 5 bullets in the gun? Yeah, you got hit by 10 then. What you think is reality, not what actually took place. Okay, what observation results of the experiment would invalidate your model the most? Well, a real interference pattern would be nice. They could actually produce one of those. Let's see. I mean, it's hard to imagine, right? Because you'd have to undo something that the experimental results, these are hundreds of years of experimental results that come out. I mean, you're not going to undo Maxwell's equations. You're not going to undo the fact that magnetism behaves like a radiant force. You're not going to undo the inverse square law as the rule. And that's the inverse square law is essentially exactly what my system creates all over the place. It's made of it, so to speak. I don't understand. I guess I'm saying I don't think it's possible for you to do it because you have to break something that is proven by experimental results, for experiments that have been repeated, not experiments that haven't been. It doesn't matter what the photons think. The point is by Einstein's theory, there's this thing called perception. That is, the thing can be in a frame, and its frame thinks. The frame produces. I'm saying if I put a frame through something and there's only 5 bullets going out, and that's all there are is 5 bullets. Now, by Einstein's theory, somehow the frame makes those 5 bullets look like 10 bullets. I'm just saying it can't really do that. That's just perception. Perception can't change the reality. There's only 5 bullets. You're seeing the bullets twice by some illusion or delusion. Okay, this is the broken clock argument. See, even Einstein thinks the clocks are broken. You people think the clocks aren't broken, the time is bent. So you don't even understand Einstein's theory. But clearly Einstein just contrived this mechanism so he could cut the odds of seeing gravitational lensing in half. And he cut it in half twice with 2 gimmicks. So they took a number that was impossible, how much bending a photon would endure. So it was this impossible number, 1 times 10 to the 48th minus 48, a tiny probability. And they cut it in half to 1 times 22, and then they cut it in half again to 1 times 12 or whatever. Just gimmicks. And your best argument is photons don't think. I mean, again, you're just playing with the words. You're ignoring the concept. The idea is by measured time, okay, we know how much radiation the sun produces every second. It produces gravity at the same way it produces light by the inverse square law. Light works exactly the same way. All right. And so we know how much gravity radiation or whatever force has been emitted in the period of time the photon is in the gravity traveling through it. Now, by time dilation, the photon perceives time to slow down and perceives things to happen slowly. It doesn't mean more things happen. But Einstein's basically saying, yes, more things happen because it's in there twice as long. I'm just saying it's not a rational gimmick. That's why I pointed it out. It's a gimmick. It can't possibly be the truth. It's rubbish. All right, 10 cucks down for reals. That means something, huh? Doesn't mean anything to me, so I think we're just gonna, I think we'll remove it. If you talk again poorly, then you'll be blocked. I don't know what the hell you were doing. Why is the square inverted? Here we go again. Why not inverse cubes? Well, whatever. Goodbye. It's a foundation of physics. You really don't want to play along rationally, right? You're just a troll. Okay, because the universe is in 3D. Well, it's spherical too. What the fuck is the question, Clan Wolf? So don't talk to the trolls. Keep warning you and you keep disobeying. Okay, I'm done. Bedtime. Okay, well, fine. I'll leave you to explain to guys why he's wrong. Whatever. Well, okay, it's nice that you take all this time to explain everything. Okay, well, that's a more reasonable statement. It is rather nice. But, again, I'm not doing it to be nice. I'm doing it because I understand it's my obligation to prove what I'm saying. This is how you prove it, is to take the questions and the challenges and explain them so people understand what the fuck you're saying. And I think I'm doing that. And I'm not getting rewarded for it, but what the fuck? We need to get a professional in here and, that knows a little bit more about physics, so he can provide a real challenge, not just word games. Thank you to Tyler. Tyler sent me some cigarettes and a little bit of cash, which is really stupid. So look, people who have fucked up lives, really, I know you want to help and you're being, you want to be friends and all that stuff, but really, I hate to use a Jordan Peterson line, but I mean, first clean your own, room. First, take care, get yourself in order so you can function and not be, 5 hours from being incarcerated in the loony bin. Try to get yourself running, and then you can worry about helping me run. I want to send a carton of Marlboros to amend them. Oh, good, thank you. I appreciate it, but I'd rather have Pall Mall 100s, but I'll take whatever I can get. Cheaper and the longer, the better. Yes, I'm certainly not picky. Yeah, my water bottle's holding up the light. So I probably should explain something else while I'm here, but I don't feel like it at the moment. So let's see what else there is to go on about. I know I thought of a few things. I just didn't write them down, so I don't have them right on the available. for me to use. Yeah, well, patches are fun. I mean, I was trying the patch for a while, and I just ended up sticking patches everywhere. Just they were all over the place. It was, like a cartoon. Really, no, these patches just don't have enough nicotine. I mean, a whole box of patches is one cigarette. It's really meant to help you get over the withdrawal symptoms, but it's just not. It's not enough. It wasn't enough for me, that's for sure. So, and they're insanely expensive for being incredibly useless and ineffective. So, let's see, there was something. Oh, I got my ferro fluid. Yeah. So it came with a pair of gloves and everything. So I got my bottle of ferro fluid. So now I can start doing some ferriosic experiments. Well, cigarettes are so highly taxed because we live in a bigocracy. Okay, it has nothing. We don't have a democracy. We don't have a constitutional republic. Nobody gives a fuck about the Constitution and the principles. And so the majority who don't smoke basically just say, let's crucify the majority. Let's tax the fuck out of them. But let's not tax our vices. So let's not tax donuts and fucking liquor. No, let's just tax those cigarette smokers because they're nasty, stupid heads. And because we don't have a constitution that's upheld by anybody, we live in a shiatocracy that just can't function at all. So, yeah, the majority gets to abuse the fuck out of the minority. Yeah, well, growing tobacco is a pain in the ass, so I'm really not interested in having holistic cigarettes or something. It's way too much trouble. Yeah, well, lots of things should be taxed. If we're going to use the standard of it's bad for you, which it isn't even, right? I mean, the irony of cigarette smokers is they're a huge benefit to society. They don't collect all their pensions. They don't collect all their Social Security. They die quicker, not slower. They're in every way a huge benefit to the economy. And yet they pretend that somehow, oh, it's a horrible liability and we can't have these people creating a liability, when it's exactly the opposite. It's like arguing that having abortions costs us money or something, when obviously it's so much cheaper than having babies. Society pays so much less. I mean, we ought to give abortions away with like a rebate for a free motorcycle or something. We ought to pay people to have abortions. It's such good economics. This idea that people pay for themselves is just such a fallacy. The only people paying for themselves are the Chinese. We're not paying our freight at all. All right, I want to do this political thing. France government denies laws to ban chickens in cages. Ban slaughterless, stunless slaughter. Why would you want to ban stunless slaughter? Oh, okay, something other than, okay, bleeding to death. Yeah, the whole Jewish thing's got to go. They got to get rid of this bleeding animals to death shit. That shouldn't be allowed. You didn't write that very well again. You don't write very well. They also said no to banning. Well, if they said no to it, I don't know what, do you make sense out of this? They also said no to banning male chick grinding. Yeah, well, I don't know. We got to do something with them. But anyway, yeah, the subject here is not vegetarianism, although, yes, it's a nice subject. People should be vegetarians, blah, 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 blah. It's just not the subject. Nature does it every day. Again, you just keep pretending, people, that this is the problem on Earth. Humans incarcerating animals. No, the problem is that 9 out of 10 of the wild birds produced are killed as chicks in miserable, horrible ways. But what's this argument about? Somebody posted me a link after a video on the other channel, so I'll speak of it briefly. So it'll be on the other channel, where they did some survey based on weight, and it was so bogus because based on weight, how much of the biomass is the human being and how much by weight is animals in cages and all this stuff, and it's just kind of a silly comparison because obviously each human being weighs like 300 mice. I mean, it's not a fair competition. Oh, don't worry. I speak about nature being shit almost on a daily basis. It's not that I'm worried. I'm just saying that, people who say stuff about being vegan without adding nature also is a murdering slob are just, leaving the subject short. All right. Thank you. Good night. Smiley, blah, blah, blah. It must be in Australia or something if it's 2 a.m. or whatever he said it was. Anyway, let's see how many people are in here. 23 viewers. That's pretty good for so few. I didn't think it was that late in France. It's only 6 hours difference. I guess it is getting late then. Yeah. My bad. I didn't realize it's late, I guess. I was going to do this earlier in the day, but I just didn't feel very good, so I didn't. I guess I could check my subscription, see if I have anything in the to be viewed box. It's that one. Lecture, I don't want that. Subscriptions, there it is. See if there's anything happening. Nope. What's this? Winners of neuroscience. I don't care about that. Winner, astrophysics. Astrophysics. Jeez. Yeah, I'm sure all these, whatever. Probably all crap. All right, skate trick science. What a waste of time. And such. Yeah, the rest of it's all stuff I've seen already. So, nope, nothing new. Nothing worthy of consideration. I couldn't see if there's any new comments. Yeah, I'll do that. And such. All right, Star Child. Well, he said his eyesight sucks. So I don't even know what that even means. Not really relevant. Not really relevant. As I can't read Star Child's. He retracted his statement, whatever the fuck it was. Bunch of retractors here, boy, people. No guts, no glory kind of thing or something. Come on. And such. So, let's see what else is news. Yeah, I got a lot of shit happening in my real life. It's going to distract me now, too. It's annoying. Always shit getting in my way. Well, not always. Periodically. So, again, I guess we're just lacking. We've got to get a better audience here. Nothing. You just can't help it all. All right, well, I should think of a subject ahead of time that I'll talk about when everything goes dead. I thought there was enough comments and everything else that there was enough to drag it out, but I guess I could just explain the Einstein thing again with drawings, but I don't know if that's worth my time either. But I have to do something. I can't even get my vape to work. So fuck that. Yeah, so get a new piece of paper. I only use this piece of paper twice. No problem. All right. So we'll move the comments over somewhere else. Behind there, maybe. Should move them somewhere you can see them. Oh, I can't double click or shit. All right, so there's the paper. Yeah, that's it. It's there. And blocking me for these idiotic people. That's a terrible thing to do. All right, sad bro. So sad how you have become so something or other. Well, fuck you. Well, I might as well read it since it's absolute crap. Let's see, I can't move it now. It's it's behind the drawing. I'll learn how to do this quickly. All right, let's see. Sad bro. I really love the bro stuff. Fuck you, boy. So sad how you've become this dissident loon, whatever that even means. So fuck you. Jealous of accomplished intellectuals like Ken Ham. Yeah, well, whatever. Waste of time. Die badly, as you well deserve. Yeah, that's a really good one. So again, I've told you people not to communicate with trolls. And here you are again, commenting to the trolls. It's pathetic. All right, so number one biggest problem with lensing. The lens is shaped wrong. The lens to collect light, okay, to collect light from a distant object, you need to bend the light at the edges a lot. See how the light bends a lot at the edges and the light doesn't bend at all going through the middle. This lens does exactly the opposite. A gravity lens, the light comes into the middle, that goes all helter-skelter. The light that goes into the edges, it keeps going straight. Won't do the job. Won't properly render an image from any distance at all. Gravity is the opposite of a viewing telescopic lens. Exactly the opposite. Can't work. Now, Einstein's silly math. So Einstein says there's a sun here, and a photon is going to travel through the gravitational influence of the sun. And there's a certain amount of time that photon will be in that gravity based on its speed, which is the speed of light. And that doesn't change from the external world's view. So an electron does exactly the same thing, same distance. The electron will take longer because it's, say, it's going half the speed of light. Let's just make that up. It's an atom. Let's just say it's an atom. So we shoot an atom at half the speed of light, and photon goes through at the speed of light. Now we know exactly how long the atom will be in the gravity, exactly how long the photon will be in the gravity. This will be 2x this. And we understand that. And there's no, so why should the rules be different? So why, for Einstein says for the photon, because it's time dilated, it's going the speed of light, somehow it's in the gravity twice as long. We don't do that for atoms. We don't say because the atom's going half the speed of light, we'll have to apply the relativity factor and increase the amount of time that it's actually being exposed to gravity. There's no compensation. And usually the compensation can't be anything realistic because we can't make things go very fast like that. We can't shoot atoms that fast to even test the theory. But the point is why? Why the change? Why this idea that somehow we don't know what this distance is when we do know this distance? And we know exactly how much If it was light hitting the photon, we know exactly how much light hit it, and the photon wouldn't be able to say, I got hit by twice as much light. It wouldn't be able to change the rules and say, I got hit by twice as much light as the atom did, even though, and I'm going twice as fast. How is that possible? It's not possible. It's idiotic. And then the other catch, so first to get rid of the inverse square law applying to a photon. And then this is the time dilation argument. And the second catch is all of a sudden now the inverse square law doesn't apply. And so not only is it in the gravity twice as long, they're saying that the force of the gravity isn't getting 4 times weaker every half the distance. So there's no 1 over r squared rule. So the 1 over r squared rule applies to everything in the sun's gravity except photons. And now all of a sudden it's only 1 over r. So now the gravity is twice as strong in this location as it would be if you applied the same rules. So they just changed the rules to make the gravity twice as strong. No inverse square law. And people say that's okay. Those huge cheats. So you got a crappy lens diagram, doesn't work. The lens is mechanically dysfunctional. The gravity around a sun, see, just to make it clear, the gravity is strongest, strong line. I don't know how to make a strong line. It's strongest, the bigger the line, the stronger the gravity. The weaker it goes, the further away. So close to the sun is where the light gets bent the most. Far from the sun is where it gets bent the least. And that's exactly not what's going to give you a focus. That's exactly not going to capture light from a distant object and bend it to your focus. It's not going to work. Simple arguments. No reply. I mean, nothing. Okay. I got one comment here. Not very useful one comment, but we'll deal with the one comment. So that's all we got. What about the electric magnetic universe? Fuck that. I've done videos on it. It's a religion. They think, too, that they're going to figure out something special, and they're going to make the world a wonderful place with their special new knowledge of their special Sparky-verse. There's no Sparky-verse. It's a stupid model. They don't have a physical model. Okay, where have they ever drawn their model? They have no model of the force. They're just pretending that somehow the craters on the moon, for example, are because electricity went, lightning bolts went shooting off of something and zapped a hole into the moon. I mean, it's a wacky pile of shit. They think, even though all we know about empty space not being a very good conductor, right? That nothing sparks through a vacuum very well. But anyway, regardless of that, I mean, obviously plasmas can. But there's no evidence of plasmas sparking across the universe or any of this crap. I mean, it's just vacuous mush. What happened to the stupid comment box? Oh, there it is. What's wrong with their physical model? There's no physics. So you say their physical model. It doesn't have, there's no physical model. There's no explanation where the energy comes from. No explanation of how it's manifest. It's just all more ether, electroether, blah, 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 coaxial electroether. What's incompatible with your model? Everything. The plasma cosmological people, so again, more absolute crap, are a bit more respectable than the electric universe crowd. They're not. I don't know how you, again, whatever. I don't know. You don't want the truth, clearly. You're just all looking for something showy and sparky and fun. And you just don't want to hear how, no, it's just kinetic. It's ball bearings. We're all just robots, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking at previous videos 5 years ago. Justin Greenborough's comments for X. Maybe you pissed off anyone who could have answered the questions. I don't know. Who's Justin Greenborough? Is he a somebody of some kind? I'm just saying I have no obligation to accept people being rude. So if people can't fucking phrase a question or a comment without being rude, why should I have to accept that? And I do accept an awful lot of it. But I'm just saying, why? I'm sitting here saying, I should just waste my time on people who can't ask questions or make claims, assertions that are founded with a link to something. Is it that difficult? No, it's not that difficult to make an assertion and then prove it with something called evidence. If there's something incompatible with my theory, show me the experiment that's incompatible. And I'll show you why your experiment's a piece of shit. Jeez. So, anyway. I should move this over a little so I don't cut myself off. That would be just horrible. Yeah, that's better. See if there's something else I can look for. Because we could see if Piro's made a video. Let's see if Piro made a video. Should be on here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Nope, just the same old stupid one from before. It's kind of irritating. Sometimes you have to refresh it to make sure because it's broken and such. And such and such. There's my website. I can look at that. Yes, abstract. At some point in the early 1900s, the science of physics committed itself to a confused dualism model of reality, where things could be more than one thing. The controversy of wave versus particle became the compromise of particles waving, and with that, the physics waved goodbye to a rationally comprehensible model description of material reality. Oh, very well done. I contend that the particle theory of reality was correct, and that the science of physics needs to return to a post-Newton, pre-Einstein knowledge base and re-examine particle-based models of the universe's function. Yes, because it works perfectly. See, little particles of photon pressure. Oh, the whole kinetic thing, and you can see the difference when they have two different colors. So if they're polarized, you can detect what happened based on the polarization. Very good. Kinetic, gravity, blah, 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 accelerating towards each other, blah, blah, blah. The electron, the proton, the force trapped between them gets stronger, completely explains the entire electromagnetic spectrum. And then magnetism, essentially. So here's charge between the electron and the proton, explains the features of charge. And then we fly right into magnetism and full explanation of what's going on. Yes, sir. Very good work. I gotta fix this, though. This drawing's wrong because I still have the neutral particle in here. I get rid of the neutral one. He doesn't belong. So anyway, you're freaking people. All right, let's see. We have something here. I'm looking at previous one. We already did that. Why haven't you done an... Oh, Jesus Christ. Fuck you. Yes, post-Newton, pre-Einstein is the correct... The right number is like 1748 or something. Everything after that is crap. What about Maxwell? Yeah, well, Maxwell's entire mathematics is basically describing rays of force. It's all vector math. It all has to do with a radiant force. It's as if he's describing light leaving a light bulb. So that's Maxwell's math, which is, it's inverse square law math. I mean, it's perfectly consistent with my theory. that may have some contentions itself. I don't know what that means by some people. So again, just too weird. People think Maxwell, because Maxwell believed there was an ether, that Maxwell made his ether into his equations or into his math and all that stuff. He didn't do any such thing. Newton believed in angels. There's no angels in Newton's math. There's no angels pushing things into anything. The fact that Maxwell wanted or thought there was an ether doesn't change the fact that Maxwell's equations aren't about ether. They're not about a medium. They're not about any of that stuff. They're just about the fact that the force behaves a specific way, and it behaves essentially like gravity behaves, except stronger. It would take like 30 minutes in an optics lab to show this guy that he's wrong. Again, wrong about what? Wrong about what? Just amazing. I'm the one pointing out that optics are important, that when you have a piece of glass and you put half silvering on it, that you've optically created a diffraction gradient, that it makes the light spread. Those are optical effects nobody else is paying any attention to. Amazing. So more grandiose claims by you people. You have this grand claim that you can demonstrate something. Why can't you post a link to this video that shows me wrong? Show me the video to the optics experiment that proves that what I'm saying is wrong. If he's open-minded at all. So again, I'm the one with the open room. I'm the one willing to talk to anybody. So, I mean, if you know somebody capable of, getting their microphone to work and you can make some arguments to me that you think are going to defeat me, I'm willing to listen. Public room. So I'm showing no fear or cowardice here. So how can I be more open-minded? If you can make an argument, articulate argument, and I'm not going to use God as an excuse, and you're going to be able to provide some evidence for what you're saying. And even if you can't, I'll still let you say it. Has he never seen an interference pattern before? So I've done no less than 200 of my videos here on this channel are on the subject of interference and the things that create it. Now, I have simple question videos. So on my homepage, there's a playlist called Questions. There's only 2 videos in it, and one of the subjects is the interferometer and where the interference comes from. And I ask some basic questions about where you think this interference is coming from. Do you have an explanation? Can you diagram it? Does your physics actually work? Does a single photon split in 2 and interfere with itself and then turn into 1 photon? Or can 2 separate photons somehow interfere with each other? Do you have answers to these simple questions, retard? No, you don't. So you're the one with a closed mind. You're the one who hasn't watched any of the videos. You're just talking out of your fucking ass. You can't show your lab with a webcam. I'm not interested in traveling to Vancouver to meet you or anything. I just want your argument. So if you can actually articulate an argument that actually contains an argument, fine. I'll subscribe to your channel. Can you produce a video of some kind, or are you incapable of doing that? How come the links don't work? How come I can't? That's kind of weird. The chat, I can't. I can't go to the channel of the person in the chat. Strange. I mean, that shouldn't be that way, right? Let's see what's in the options. Report, go to channel. I have to do this to get to his channel? Strange bullshit. And it opens a new Chrome window. Okay, so I'll subscribe to your channel. You seem to be able to make videos about video gaming and some other kind of crap, last moments of life or something. You can make some videos. So why don't you just make a video and explain to me how I'm wrong? You're such an authority. Where the hell did this come up? I don't even understand what window this is in. Huh. Talk physics. Oh, okay, it's in the main window. All right, I get it now. So anyway, let's see. Okay, it's on the right side. So I didn't see any of your lab. Like I said, you can videotape it with a fuck. I don't care. I don't need high quality. Just pick up your webcam, move it around. They're already. I mean, I don't know what your lab is going to prove. I'm just saying, you know. Yeah, I've already dissected how they work. All right, I've played the videos of the interferometer. I've done the experiment on my own porch. So again, you haven't watched any of these videos, and yet you're critiquing them as if you've paid any attention to them. You haven't paid any attention to the content on this website. You're just naysaying for the sake of it. I can confirm their work in real life the same way. Confirm what? You can confirm that the two photons go different paths. The single photon splits in two, takes two different paths, and then comes back and is recombined? Or are they two separate photons that take two separate paths and then somehow combine? Can you even explain that part? And what kind of beam splitter do you use? Because if you're using half-silvered mirror, look up diffraction gradient, because that's what half-silvered mirror creates, is a diffraction gradient. I've already made these arguments so many times in so many videos. Like I said, you can't be bothered to actually watch the content you're critiquing. You've seen what yourself? You've seen photons interfering? Amazing. I don't think you have. They're separate photons. Okay, so here's his statement. They're separate photons. Now, you want to show me somewhere in quantum mechanics where there's a single explanation of how different photons can interfere? Because they can't make that happen with the double slit experiment. They can't make two different photons go through the different slits and interfere with each other. Can't do it. So how come they can't make different photons interfere with each other? How come there always has to be a single photon that splits in two to interfere? The single photon has to split into a wave function, and the wave functions have to interfere with each other. So why don't you show me where there's quantum mechanics theory for individually different photons interfering with each other? Where's the theoretical paper written on that subject? Where's the paper? The peer-reviewed paper on quantum mechanics explaining how separate photons interfere with each other. I thought your thesis was the wave nature of light is invalid. Yes, I think it's absolute crap. There's no, light isn't a wave. It's not waving in a medium. There is no electrical field and a magnetic field. None of those things exist. Yes. I don't know what you're not arguing against anything except me. You're saying that somehow I can be proven wrong with something that you're not pointing a finger to and explaining where it proves me wrong. You think light's a wave. I'm saying I can point out that the only experiments that demonstrate it being a wave are insanely flawed experiments. I've pointed out the flaws. Again, watch the question videos. I'm pointing out the flaws in this notion that photons can be bent in any way whatsoever. They can only interact with electrons. Photons go from point A to point B in a straight line, and the only way you ever change them is they have to hit an electron. All right. He says the rings are created at the beam splitter. I'm saying that the divergence is created at the beam splitter, so don't fucking put words in my mouth, idiot. And that's how the MM pattern is made. I pointed out how it's made because of the internal reflection of the glass. And when you have a glue layer, that's doing the same thing. It's thin film interference in the sense that it's thin films create internal reflections. the glass is producing the pattern through internal reflections. This is directly verifiable, falsifiable statement, not just about an explanation. Again, I think I have validated and then I've showed college professors explaining internal reflection. And the pattern for the internal reflection is exactly going to create the ringed pattern. pattern question mark. So again, the experiment wasn't even done with monochromatic light. They used a telescope to focus on only the center of the pattern. So the whole pattern wasn't even in the experiment. The only part they cared about was the blip in the middle. Yeah, well, they used monochromatic light to set the experiment up. That's the irony. They chose to use white light for the experiment. They set up the device with monochromatic light. That's the joke of this whole thing. Yes, the glass of the beam splitter has internal reflections creating ring patterns there. Well, I mean, you're conceding my argument. I mean, the point was made so clear. I mean, I proved it. All I have to do is blow on this. That moisture, just a little bit of, I've made this glass dirty with that. And now when I reflect light off this piece of plastic, the light that goes through the surface and reflects is going to have that pattern on it. And when it diverges that light, then the pattern will be visible because the light will be diverged. It will spread and the pattern will be visible. The Michelson-Morley pattern was done at the university I'm working at right now. I'll try to show your thesis to people here. Thank you. I mean, frankly, I would just like you to have them show you, okay, how a half-silvered mirror doesn't create a diffraction gradient. The two beams can't possibly be equal if one of them's diverging and one of them isn't. That would be the point they should have to deal with. Have you had a chance to hear Draft Science arguments and the basic nature of his model? No, of course he hasn't. He just came here to rag, like, oh, you're just another this, you're just another that. So, you know, this is just pigeonhole and slipshod. Don't give a shit about actually making arguments. It's just trolling. I mean, there's a ton of people who make all kinds of assertions, and you can test them by the fact that they're not doing these live rooms, right? That's one way to test them. They're not taking questions, they're not taking comments, they're not dealing with anything. So they're clearly have a preposterous theory and they don't do anything to defend it. All right, he's getting distracted by the specifics of the Michelson-Morley experiment and ignoring all the other interference experiments that we do all of the time. So more nonsense. I haven't ignored them at all. So again, you're saying that somehow I've ignored them. I've done 800 videos on this channel, and no less than, say, 200 of them are on this specific subject, idiot. So I have dealt with them all, and I've dealt with them thoroughly. There's lots of mechanical problems. Why don't you explain why, when you do the experiment with photons, the pattern doesn't graduate the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be just like the electron pattern. It's supposed to be a smooth, gradual, from light to dark, smooth and gradual. And instead, in every single slit or double slit experiment I've seen done with light photons, it's always a bar pattern. No gradual pattern. The math dictates it should be gradual. Why isn't it? Isn't it about this explanation for the experiments? Isn't it about the explanations for the experiments? Clearly, they have assumptions going into experiments. They're assuming things. And so, you know, here they assume Heisenberg and then Huygens excuses. So they have these nonsense assumptions going into the experiment that somehow photons aren't really a thing. So Feynman said it pretty clearly. Photons are photons, okay? They're corpuscular. And that still wasn't enough, you know, of somebody pointing out that, yeah, they go from point A to point B, and that's what they do. You know, and that this whole wave thing is another thing happening. It's just Feynman believed there was this idea of a mechanism that he had no idea what it was and just said the mechanism causes this. But he didn't have a delusion that photons split in two and interfere with each other. He believed that they go based on a probability of where they're going to land. He didn't do wave interference. He never drew the wave interference pattern. You might notice that Feynman never drew the wave interference pattern. He didn't believe in Huygens. There's a physical experiment. I'm just saying the facts are that the evidence is really weak. You have one bizarre experiment where, yes, when you put photons through matter next to the surface of matter, and that's what happens when you make slits smaller and smaller, is the odds of the photon going right next to the matter increases, right? That's the simplest fact. When I make a hole smaller and smaller and smaller, it means that whatever photon goes through, the odds are it went really close to the surface. That's what you're really doing when you make something small. So that's a fact. We could all agree on that fact, right? That isn't a complicated fact. Now, I'm suggesting that being close to the matter means something. They're suggesting that doesn't mean anything at all. How close you are to the matter doesn't change how the photon behaves. It doesn't matter. And that's a clear difference. I'm saying they're believing that for no good reason. It seems quite obvious the matter is what's causing the photon to move differently, not the photon. It's not the photon's idea. The photon is being forced to move differently, and it's being forced by a circumstance created on the surface of material objects. Let's see. I understand the simplicity, fuck you, and the descriptions, qualities of your descriptions, qualities, the descriptive qualities of your model. Maybe that'd be a better way to say it. But what's other qualities it have? It unifies physics, for fuck's sake. That's a pretty big one. It fits all the foundational rules, you know, like the inverse square law and all that stuff. It explains all the really, really solid evidence. Could you give one prediction? Oh, here we go again. I predict they'll never find a photon that was actually bent by gravity. Yes, that's what I predict. It never happened, ever. That doesn't match the main one, something we could test. Well, again, if it was easy to test, then they would have actual evidence for their theory. They don't have actual evidence of anything. There's no really great tests, unfortunately. I mean, I might like to use that LIGO 4-mile tunnel and shoot a laser beam in it all day long just as a spot and just see if the laser beam moves at all. That might be a nice test. But I'm sure they're not going to rent it to me. I have devised tests. I mean, I can test the radar theory of interference, right? The radio wave interference theory. I think I can prove that one's absolute nonsense. It has nothing to do with two towers producing, and the rays interfering with it. It just has to do with jamming the radio signal. I mean, I've explained all that. That's a test. I mean, I can't disprove a God theory, and basically their theory is all dark matter. It's all, I mean, how do I disprove Heisenberg? Oh, by doing the impossible, which is photographing a photon. If you say there is an arrangement of electrons held to the slits, presumably by electrostatic forces. No, they're presumably by a very simple fact that electrons are attracted to protons, and that there isn't just the electrons that are captured, that there's still a force that radiates outside of the capturability. So there are electrons that can be held loosely. And that is, they're attracted to the proton. They're really not part of the atom in a substantive way. They're just electrons. And they're hanging around because there's protons in there. It's like male cats hanging around where the female cat lives. Wouldn't a magnet influence the arrangement? Damn right it would. But I'm just saying, influence is a tricky word, isn't it? But yeah, I think magnetic slits would be an interesting experiment, but clearly it's a little difficult to do because you don't have enough, very thin magnetic material, wouldn't be producing enough magnetism. And again, it's a material surface phenomenon. So again, we're talking about material surfaces, and the magnetism has limited ability to change the fact that the proton is attracted to the electron. It has to have enough influence to somehow pull electrons, and it can't do that. Wait, so they're hanging around loosely. A magnet would especially influence the arrangement. A magnet would especially influence the arrangement. Well, clearly magnets don't do that. You can't pull charge off of something with a magnet. I can't just take a magnet. Say I got a plate charged with 1,000 volts. I can't just take a magnet and, remove all the charge. It's not that simple. The monopoles, the electrons react to other electrons. And so what all a magnet is a kind of you could think of it as a consolidation of electrons in one half and protons in the other half. So you're just going to move the electrons closer to other electrons. You see? And to do that, you have to get very close before you can really start to affect the electrons. So you'd have to get insanely close to be able to affect the electrons with a magnet. The force can't interact with the force. So again, you still have to understand, the force doesn't interact with force. The force has to interact with the other stuff, the bits. And it can't push an electron closer to other electrons. It can increase the voltage, and that's what a magnet does by compressing the electron. So again, if you move it towards a conductor or anything that can migrate electrons, which would be a conductor, you'll just change the voltage, but you won't necessarily change the number of electrons. That is, you'll just compress them so they'll be closer together. Let's see. Wouldn't the magnet influence this arrangement? Wait. So they're hanging around loosely. A magnet would especially influence this arrangement. Well, like I just pointed out, no, it wouldn't. Again, the force can only be, you can't have an electron here and an electron here and pretend that if I move the electron here, I affected this electron a whole lot, because the force is so weak at that distance. If the Standard Model is disproven further, they will just invent more fictional particles to counteract the effect. Well, again, that's your opinion. I frankly, I think if they're properly humiliated, I mean, if I demonstrate that their whole theory for their LIGO experiment is kind of rubbish, and there's no way they could have detected what they claim they detected. I mean, if they're sort of caught with some kind of big fraud, the fraud of the Eddington experiment never being properly reproduced. I mean, we had the best eclipse circumstances you could possibly have, an eclipse right across the United States of America, the best technology in the world, and not one observatory or one college science class or anything repeated the Eddington experiment. One amateur guy did it, and again, I pointed out how it's complete garbage. He has rubbish resolution photos he took, absolute garbage, and used star charts as comparison. Just absolute garbage experiment. Can't possibly overcome the margin of error. This is garbage. I mean, they've just gotten a free ride. That's all it comes down to, because physics is a complex subject and no one else has had a better model till now. You know, if I didn't have a better model, I'd have a hard time arguing with them, right? Because I'd have to just say, well, you're wrong, but I don't have the right answer. But the fact that I do have a perfectly viable mechanical theory that works means that, yeah, I can make the argument now, because I have something to replace their Huygens and their Heisenberg and their wave nonsense and their entanglement bullshit. I have a counter theory that explains function. I can explain why magnets move together. I don't have to make virtual anything. I can explain that space isn't bent, that pressure pushes planets into suns, quite obviously. Let's see. Why do you, let's see, cyclotron magnets have to produce stronger fields? Because they have to keep pushing whatever they're pushing on the outside edge than towards the center of the accelerator. They're just pushing things out of a path. So yes, you push it in and then it has to go faster. Let's see, faster in the shorter distance. When you make the distance smaller, the velocity ends up increasing. So if you push something that's going slow out here into a smaller orbit, the thing that has to give is that its velocity has to make up the difference. Let's see. Laura Southern. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I have no clue what that is. No clue. So we'll just delete it because I have no clue what the hell that is. Are you open to the possibility that mainstream physics has some fundamental problems? It has catastrophic problems. Bent space is a silly foundation. Wave theory is a silly foundation. So both are relativity and quantum mechanics are both catastrophically broken. And alternative models are needed. Oh, so you're talking to the other guy. No, apparently he doesn't think they have fundamental problems. So obviously he wouldn't be doing all this nonsense if he thought they didn't have fundamental problems. He doesn't get that the basic assumptions were wrong. And they've built the whole physics on a bunch of wrong assumptions. Very, very weakly evidenced conclusions. Well, assuming that particles will become heavier as they speed up, well, fuck that shit. Obviously, they become heavier because they have more force in them. And force is a real thing. If you're moving, velocity, the space shuttle, I've used this example, giant flame coming out of the end. It's capturing a giant flame inside of itself. It's collecting giant flame. So it doesn't necessarily mass. It has mass as force. And obviously, when it hits something, all that flame is going to show up because it's real. Tyler Johnson says Tyler Johnson. Interesting. I did talk to you earlier in this video. Just thanks for the cigarettes, but you really ought to take care of yourself first, and you're typing nutty stuff now, so you're not helping yourself any. Anyway, but even though they're wrong about that, they're able to aim these beams so precisely. Well, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, they're just bending something with magnetism. I mean, come on. TVs did pretty good, too. Cathode ray tube, pretty amazing. Scans across the screen, does all that shit in 3 different guns. But it's not, it's not really amazing. It only looks that way. None of that makes sense. The entire laboratory where I work would be impossible if we were really so mistaken. So again, you just claim, oh, it's impossible because our whole laboratory would blow up. No, it wouldn't. The physics wouldn't blow up. The beams would just be shooting everywhere, killing someone. That's absolute rubbish. So again, there's nothing in my theory that means you can't push electrons or protons with magnetism. When I think electrons and protons are the magnetic monopole, why wouldn't you be able to move monopoles with a magnetism? Yeah, I guess you would. So that's just a pile of horse shit. So again, just a nothing remark, just absolutely vacuous. Claims that somehow physics breaks down under my theory. Absolute lie. You just made it up. You don't have a single, again, you can't cite a real piece of experimental evidence that demonstrates that conflict you claim exists between my theory and every physical event that ever took place in the universe. Because there is no conflict. Asshole. All right, time to go. Such and so forth. And, it wasn't much fun, but at least we did do some new graphical blah, 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 and that's sort of interesting. And I was able to do some drawing, but I just don't know what the point is because you people are cement heads. Oh, again, relativistic speeds. What does that have to do with it? What does how fast the electron is moving have to do with the fact that it's the exact force that bends them is magnetism. So again, it's just a nonsense. Electrons are moving plenty fast when they're shot out of an electron gun through a TV, and yet little magnets bend the beams perfectly. So where's the bullshit here? It's just absolute crap. I love how this is getting dragged on, whatever that even means. Yeah, well, just fuck you. I wish you were dragged under a bus or something, you stupid, useless pieces of shit. You just can't make arguments worth shit. You just claim you know something. You know better. You don't know crap. You've let a bunch of nerds tell you what reality is. Stupid, unreliable, silly nerds. But anyway, till the next time and such, so forth and whatnot. Let's see, one of these windows has got to be the window I used to turn this thing off, I think. I guess this is the one. So, till the next time, and the such, and so forth and whatnot.